Alrighty, hey guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you're having a blessed day. Today we will be talking through chapter. We're still in chapter one. We're still in the intro of the book. Although I have added a very interesting passage today that I believe belonged in the introduction, and it talks about just criticism in general and what I believe about constructive criticism and what does criticism serve. And I've learned that from the Stoics and from Greek philosophers, which is basically how to deconstruct your own narrative and look at it from a critical point of view, trying to actually attack your own narrative. Socrates was one of the people who did that. So that's what we're going to try to do today. I hope you enjoy the lecture, and let's get started. I would criticize my system or the frameworks I've created. I'd say something as simple as, you constructed this framework and thus you don't encounter challenges in your life because you've resolved everything. That sort of criticism is valid and does carry a valid logical question behind it. To that, I'd say, you're actually right. It doesn't mean that I arrived at these conclusions that I or the system itself owns the truth, that we own the truth. What I'm trying to do to the best of my ability is to map out the dimensions of different aspects while putting them into relational groups and taxonomies, meaning groups and organizations of ideas. So, in this part here, what I'm trying to show you is that what I want eventually, why do I categorize information and why do I try to create these categories and this relational database of information? Why does it serve? Like, which purpose does it serve? To me, it serves two things. When we give groups names, we're inherently trying to see the properties, the similar properties of something and similarities and differences. At the same time, we can also see how they work together against each other and how we can create a symbiosis or a structural point to where we can make these maybe distant elements work together. Also, when we give properties and give names to specific groups or ideas, that's one of our superpowers, I think. Because when you give something a name, an idea, a specific idea, when you give it a name, you're basically creating life in a very non-biological way. Um, and that's why I do that. It simplifies the investigation. It allows you to see the bigger picture and it helps me define, criticize, improve each element of the framework even more. So criticism is definitely accepted, although when I'm trying to criticize my own system or any idea I'm having, it is very important that it comes from a place of deep understanding because the difference between somebody who just wants to make an argument for an argument's sake, they would never be specific with you about what they're exactly arguing about. For example, they'd say something like, it seems incomplete to me, or yeah, I really didn't understand this point quite well. These are great. This is a great way of criticizing, but which part exactly didn't you understand that well, right? Because if you were paying attention, so is it a lack of understanding, a lack of explanation, or a lack of attention? And that's something that is very important to define when we are studying topics, talking about topics in general, whether in philosophy, in wisdom, in science, in politics, in sociology, in economics, in anything. When we criticize something, we need to criticize it from a point that is truthful, honest, and comes from understanding, not from lack of understanding, right? So paying attention is the least you can do when you're trying to criticize something. Always try to be very specific. So that's the same rules that the fairness principle, which I abide to throughout my investigations, throughout these lectures, is the same. So I owe it to you, right? I owe you the fairness principle, and I owe it to myself. I owe myself to be fair when looking at different topics, but I also owe the listener or the reader the same fairness principle. So I totally accept criticism. It is very important. It has actually driven me to come out with better explanations, better conclusions. But at the same time, you must differentiate the real criticism when it does have a point of understanding and vague criticism that comes from lack of paying attention or just being argumentative for argumentation's sake. And this is very important for me to define and to explain to you. Um, so it doesn't mean that I arrived, so let's continue reading. It doesn't mean that I arrived at these conclusions or that the system itself owns the truth. What I'm trying to do to the best of my ability is to map everything in groups of, and taxonomies in order to deal with them better. Naming and categorization help us see more clearly how each hierarchy works, making the system itself customizable. That's very important. The system itself is customizable. I advocate for this customization so much because I don't know your life. I don't know what you've been through. And of course, if we sit down and have a one-on-one conversation, I'd be a lot more in a much better position to be able to let you know which areas you need to work on. But until then, you are the only one who know your story. You are the only one who know or should look at yourself and understand which areas are you working on, which areas are you lacking, in terms of either the human trinity, body, mind, and soul, or when we are talking about the 12 principles of knowledge or the 10 keys of personal mastery. All of these frameworks, they help you understand yourself and the world, while at the same time, that understanding of yourself should unlock what you should be working on. And that's very important for me to say right now. Um, that is something I advocate throughout the book and my life. Take what you need, keep the rest for later, or throw it away. Do what you want with it because at the end of the day, I'm not the system itself. That reminds me of a very interesting story. So I used to do like musical events when I was a musician way back, and people actually started knowing me by the event's name, and I always had to correct that. I'm not the event, like I have a name. And people used to call me, which was Rock Strip. So like the Sunset Strip, right? Rock Strip. That was the name. So that was very interesting. Like people actually called me the event's name, and so I hope that that same um phenomenon doesn't repeat itself. And if it does, it's just gonna be funny to me, honestly, and entertaining. So do what you want with it because at the end of the day, I'm not the system, nor is it above any criticism. To the person who asks, did the system resolve every single problem in your life? The answer is probably not. It's not made to resolve every single problem in your life, but it is designed to help you navigate those issues and problems with clarity and purpose. Clarity and purpose. It helps you know yourself and understand the outer world, the cosmos. It also aids you to comprehend what you're getting into, figure out your triggers, face yourself and your fears, recognize your excuses. So this is what I can help you with, right? This passage here. I think that's very important. Um, again, comprehend what you're getting into, figure out your triggers, face yourself and your fears, recognize your excuses, which are mostly BS, based on understanding, not on repetition and memorization or memorizing statements that are commonly traded. I am definitely not above criticism. Bear that in mind. I am my biggest critic. I truly try to destroy my arguments in as many ways as possible. At the same time, let's say you're telling me the system is incomplete. Fair. Then make sure to specify what is incomplete about it. Can you be more specific? I accept the criticism and challenge, but when you say, I don't know why the system feels incomplete, okay, then that's that then it's not then that you're bringing me any specific criticism. It's more of an opinion, and I respect that. I can listen to it, but I cannot answer it. How can I answer something that is not specific? It's like it's like you're saying something like that. Can I ask you a question? And I say sure, and then you don't ask it. So that's very empty criticism. It's not even criticism. It just shows either lack of understanding or lack of paying attention. And it's just criticizing for criticizing's sake, or just trying to be contrarian for contrarian's sake. There's no logical argument behind it, which you have the right to do. But unless you bring up a specific point, I cannot answer your inquiry unless there's an actual inquiry to be made. Point behind your logic. I cannot make you feel a certain way. I have no control over you. And that's why criticism and these types of conversations are important. As more people ask me questions, I am forced to explain aspects that I inherently understand or have lived through. Because the people on the outside have not lived that experience, questions and criticisms are actually very constructive. Solid criticism looks something like this. My book and work are hard to is hard to recognize, to categorize, I'm sorry, and recognize. And that I can truly understand, as what I'm writing isn't existentialism nor nihilism, nor is it a spiritual guide. Is it a self-help book? Is it a philosophy book? Is it a framework system book? So I think that the difficulty of categorization can be its greatest asset or its greatest downfall. So that's true criticism. I mean, that the fact that it cannot be actually categorized on a shelf, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense to me, and that is true criticism, and I do accept that. Not because I want to make it more difficult to people, absolutely not. And that's why I have these commentary lectures to actually explain the reasoning behind the idea. Um, and that would unravel a lot of the mysteries in the philosophy books. If we had the commentary of the authors try to explain how they arrived at these conclusions, that would help us out a lot. Not because I want to make it more difficult, but because great literary works usually share something in common. They need to be specific, but at the same time, they must also cover a lot of ground in order for the idea to be applicable on different aspects of life. That's why, for example, the art of war can be applied to different areas like business, strategy, or marketing. I made sure that what I'm writing about can be applied to different areas of life. The work itself is paradoxical in its nature. I have tried to the best of my ability to keep the flow dynamic and simple, giving examples and using different methods to compress, give digestible content and context, while giving examples and practical frameworks that dwell into many of the questions that many of the great minds have been questioning and reflecting upon. I am my biggest critic in anything I do before I even do it. Uh, Still doesn't mean I'm above criticism. Still doesn't mean I'm above any questioning or any solid, healthy reasoning. And it is an active investigation. So I would appreciate your questions, your criticisms, even if you don't understand something. I don't mind that. But just be specific about what exactly you're not understanding. Try to express that thought in the best way possible. Like when you say I don't understand something, or or there's something wrong, you try to be specific at least, because that would actually elevate your position in the conversation, and you might actually pinpoint and create your own, and understand yourself and create your own point of view when reviewing different ideas. It helps us in our life to really understand ourselves, understand the world, understand everything. Comprehension is at the center of cosmos. Comprehension is maybe the steam engine of wisdom. It is not just the steam engine, but it's also, I say, comprehension is the daughter, or the son, or the offspring of wisdom, because you cannot, I mean, if you understand something, you're on the right path towards wisdom. You really need to understand the topics you're talking about. Anyways, I don't want to make this longer than it should be. Thank you so much. I know these topics are, thinking is tiring. Thinking is not um, an exercise that people are used to doing. I don't know why. But at the same time, thinking in loops, overthinking is not what we're trying to do. We are dissecting and exploring and moving forward in different topics. So trying to map out its dimensions and different points of view. And that's important to me. Thinking in loops and worrying, and that's overthink. That's another thing totally. That's not what we're trying to do here. So bring me your questions, bring me your doubts, and I hope you have a blessed day. Thank you so much. This was the investigator, and I'll see you on the other side. Take care.